I am George Goddard. I am a trade unionist and also an industrial relations professional. I'm a poet as well, a writer, and I have published a number of collections of poetry, and I am generally engaged in literature, in political activism, and in industrial relations. This basically is what I'm all about.
All right. Thank you so much for that, sir. It's an honor to talk to you. So you are currently speaking from me from where?
From St. Lucia in the Eastern Caribbean.
All right. That is an honor, sir. Okay, so today we are looking at the life and legacy of somebody who is very important for all the African diaspora and even the people that are living in Africa. I'm talking of the person of Marcus Garvey. Now, of course, we are going to learn a lot of things about him through you, his background, his story, and a whole lot of things. So we start with the basis. How would you describe the person of Marcus Garvey, the kind of a brief description of him?
Marcus Garvey was what I would describe as, first and foremost, a Black nationalist and a Pan-Africanist. The period, he was born in a period, I think it was 1887. It was the late 1800s. Capitalism internationally was in the throes of one of its cyclical troughs or depressions. Jamaica, where Marcus Garvey was born in St. Anne's Bay in the British West Indies, had only just come out of slavery. In fact, as had the British West Indies just come out of slavery. Social conditions for the mass of Black people had not recognizably changed in any material way. So this was the period in which Marcus Garvey was born. It was in this period that the clamoring of an oppressed and socially deprived people intensified, and the seeds of a philosophy of liberation that went beyond just the emancipation of 1834 to 1838 was sown in St. Anne's Bay, as I say, which was a rural community. Garvey was born there. He went to school there up to sixth standard, which we describe in the Caribbean as primary schooling. And life was critical. And after leaving school, he then moved to Kingston, where he began to work. He was engaged in printing. He developed skills in printing. I would also like to mention that his father seemed to be somewhat of an activist. His father spoke on political platforms, trade union platforms in various parts of Jamaica. And perhaps some of that rubbed off on him. But then again, as I have said, conditions were very, very oppressive. And so the young Garvey very, very early moved from the rural community of St. Anne's Bay and eventually, within a period of 2 years, into Kingston, that is the capital of Jamaica.
Thank you so much for that, sir. Now, he went to school in Jamaica, of course. He haven't got to the United States now, as we will discuss later. Do we remember any incident, anything that we can learn from his school days as a young child that is going to school? Slavery have just ended. Of course, life is precarious, like you just described. But do we remember anything of him going to the school, the primary school, maybe friends of him, maybe what he said then before he became, okay, he's still an ordinary young boy now?
Well, Marcus was always very sharp-witted, and he was somebody who learned very, very quickly. And Marcus was one who very, very early at that time, even going to primary school, would engage at his school in the back and forth on what were the very bad conditions in Jamaica at the time, where people weren't able to put bread on the table, even in the rural communities, where there was a little respite in the rural communities because people planted their own foodstuffs and so. But a lot of the perhaps of the other trappings of life they could not get, and it was a hand-to-mouth existence. And very, very often, Garvey and his classmates would get into little debates as far as this was concerned.
All right. Thank you for that. That is always very important for us because we are looking at the life of ordinary people who become extraordinary in the course of their life. And of course, we are looking at the life and legacy of this individual so that people can understand that, yes, as an ordinary person, you can grow to become extraordinary. They didn't jump down from the sky. They are every other, like every other person. But of course, we can see that they did extraordinary. Now, talking of that, you did say that his father was a sort of a trade unionist. He was outspoken. Maybe that is where Marcus Garvey will get some of the input as he was growing up that he will later develop to become who he became. Just like his father, is there any other person that we could lay hand on in Jamaica who was sort of influencing the people, mobilizing the people for sort of liberation that we can say that Marcus Garvey could have learned from?
Yes, Marcus Garvey, very early in his life, when he migrated into Kingston and became a printer's apprentice, one of the very first things that I think we should note is that he became involved in the Printers Union. And there in the Printers Union, in the struggle of the working class people, a lot of the ideas of the organized struggle of the oppressed Black people, and to some extent the brown people as well, who were of mixed race, that is where he came into contact with some of the very first ideas that would solidify and crystallize sometime later. And so one found that there was a particular organization. That organization was an organization called, I think it was called, what was the organization called? But it was an organization, a Black nationalist organization that was putting out an organ called Our Own. And the one, I don't recall the name now, but the guy who led that organization made a lasting impression on Marcus, so that it helped solidify his philosophy of Black nationalism. In fact, one of the issues of that organ, this particular gentleman wrote, "It is only when the people of the diaspora, the people of Africa and African descent throughout the Caribbean, the West Indies, that is, the Central America, the United States, Africa, throughout the world, it is only when they unite that they will be able to achieve true liberation for the oppressed Black peoples throughout." And so this particular organization, this particular gentleman who led this organization, whose name really escapes me right now, but he had a very profound influence on Marcus Garvey and to help to form Marcus Garvey's philosophy while Marcus was a very young man.
Mm-hmm. All right, that is very important. Now you revealed something interesting there, which is the idea that Marcus Garvey, of course, will later solidify and make popular, which is the Africa Unite. Of course, we also will hear of Bob Marley, Africa Unite. So we can see now that the idea have been around somewhere in Jamaica at the time.